Hey, I'm Matthew Hicks, and today I'm going to show you guys how to build this floating desk with a giant drawer. So when I was building my house, I had this L-shaped couch design, and there was a table on the wall that would fold down, and you could maneuver the couch around to seat 4 people down to eat. It was a really sweet idea, but I never had anyone over to my house to eat. So that idea just ended up not working. About a year later, I took the couch out and put in a nice comfy chair and a little end table with a cool lamp. But I want to have a desk space because I never really had that in my house and I was always working on the go. But now I want to be able to work at home and I want to be able to spend more time working at home. So to do this, I'm going to build a folding desk to go in that nook you saw, and it'll have a drawer for a MIDI keyboard, and we're going to get to it. But before we get to it, safety first. For this project, we're going to start out with some 1x11 pine from a local sawmill. I cut the boards to roughly 52 inches to give me plenty of length for the final piece. I took all the boards over to the joiner to get a clean edge to take to the table saw. Now, I did get a little bit lazy here, and I noticed this in person. I didn't push the board all the way up against the fence, which gave me a wobbled edge. However, I just kept going over the joiner till I fixed the problem. Then I took the boards over to the table saw to get a clean edge on the other side, and I cut the third piece to the final width. I laid all 3 boards out in an arrangement that made the grain look really nice. I made several lines where the boards intersected, and this was a place to make the holes for the biscuit. I used a biscuit joiner here. Now, biscuits are not used for strength, they are mainly used for alignment. However, I knew the glue and the frame of the table would be enough support for this top. Lucky for me, Mr. Nathan showed up just in time to help me glue up the piece. After everything was clamped up, I let the glue set up overnight. The next day, I took a hand plane and an orbital sander to the tabletop. This was to clean up any dried glue and to remove any high spots in the wood. The top of this desk was really starting to look good. I set the top aside and began working on the frame. I ripped 2 1-inch pieces from a 1x6 at the table saw. Since I am putting a wide drawer in this desk, I needed a header to run across the top to support the tabletop. I glued these 2 strips together and clamped them up really well. And as Bob Claggett says, you can never have too many clamps. I added pocket holes to the side 2x4s to hold the back support and the front header all together. I added glue to all the joints before screwing the frame together. Having the small header made this more challenging than I expected. So now that the frame of the desk is done, what we're going to do next is we're actually going to build a casing inside that for the drawer. So we're going to use a lot of plywood for this next step. A full sheet should do for you, and that's what I have. Hopefully it works. I clamped down a straight edge to the piece of plywood. This allowed me to have a really clean cut with the circular saw. I cut all the strips to length at the miter saw. To assemble the inner frame, I just pre-drilled and countersunk for 1 1/4 inch screws. Off camera, I cut down some 1x6 blocks to clean up the front. So these blocks I just glued up are gonna fill in this gap right in here. It's gonna make this whole front nice and smooth. I moved on to cutting the sides of the drawer at the table saw. I was able to get both sides out of that one board. Off camera, I ripped the bottom of the drawer to width, and here you're seeing me rip it to length. I ripped another 1-inch piece, similar to the header, to act as edge banding for the drawer bottom. I glued this up, once again using plenty of clamps, and let it dry overnight. As you just saw me, I glued up the base for the drawer and I cut the sides of the drawer over at the table saw. So I'm gonna go get some rest, but lucky for you guys, you get to see me assemble this thing. I used glue and pocket screws to attach the decorative piece to the front. I took out the interior frame to add pocket holes to attach the tabletop to the frame. If I was smart, I would have done this earlier. Here you can see how the pocket holes will attach the top of the desk to the frame. The decorative pieces also add a really nice touch. I added pocket holes to the bottom of the drawer to attach the side pieces. Before gluing and screwing everything up, I sanded everything up to a 220 grit. I used a 45-degree roundover bit at the router table. I did this on top and bottom of the front face of the drawer and the tabletop. I also routed the bottom of the drawer sides to give a nice uniform look at the bottom. I sanded the drawer bottom one more time with 220 grit. I also sanded the routed edge by hand. I added glue and pocket screws to both drawer slides. I also hand sanded the curve at the bottom to make it uniform. I discovered I needed a third piece for the back of the drawer to give the drawer more support. Off camera, I cut it to length at the miter saw and to width at the table saw. I added pocket holes to the back of the board to attach it to the bottom of the drawer. I added a clamp to make sure the sides were glued to the back board. After test fitting the drawer, I realized I forgot to account for the height of the header when I was cutting the interior plywood frame. Instead of wasting more plywood, I just added some 1x pine to the bottom. I pre-drilled and countersunk holes before screwing in the board. I flipped the frame back over and then put the tabletop on top of the frame. I was really starting to get excited about this project. And don't worry, the sides will be up against the wall so you won't see this odd gap. Now for the sketchy part. After seeing Brad from Fix This Build That add wireless charging to his desk, I knew I had to have it on my desk. To get comfortable with the plunge router, I added the channel for the cable to lay in first. Shortly after using the plunge router, I realized I was going to need some safety goggles. Sawdust was flying everywhere. I set the depth stop to give me 1/8 of an inch of wood above the wireless charger. I took my time with the circle, getting a little bit lower with each pass I made. So the wireless charging works. I'm super pumped about that. Now you just saw me plunge route for the first time. It was really scary doing that to the final workpiece, but we got it down to a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch, and it works just about every time I put my phone on it. It just kind of stinks I'm filming with the phone because I can't show you right now. However, when we finish it, I will definitely be showing y'all the wireless charging. I have to be honest with you guys. I'm a tad bit embarrassed. And by a tad bit, I mean I'm extremely embarrassed. So I was actually going to just take a final measurement to go double check myself. This desk is supposed to be 48 inches wide. I don't know what I was doing, but I made it 46 inches wide. And man, I was very upset at myself. But I am gonna show you guys how I fixed it. It was a really quick fix. The front doesn't look near as clean as I wanted it to, but at the end of the day, it's my desk. It'll be a good reminder to always check yourself before you glue everything up. But I'll show you guys what I did. So I had this 1/8 inch piece of plywood left over from a project you're about to see next. And then this was the same board as the top that was leftover rip from when I ripped that last board to width. So my total length is actually 47 15/16, which for a 48 inch opening, I think we'll be all right with that. I moved on to finishing the top of the desk. I used the dark walnut stain to match my window trim and my initial countertops. Once the stain dried, off camera I added 2 coats of gloss polyurethane. I lightly sanded with 220 grit in between coats. After staining the top, I moved on to installing the drawer hardware. In my kitchen, my drawers have a soft closing mechanism on them, and I wanted this piece to have that as well. However, as soon as I got the drawers to fit, I realized that the soft close mechanism was not going to work with this heavy of a drawer. I installed identical ball bearing drawer slides without the soft close mechanism off camera once the desk was installed. The drawer was a little bit too wide, so I took it over to the joiner. This allowed me to get the perfect width for the drawer. I'm taking these long pauses because I'm trying to figure out why the drawer is not working well. This is when I came to the conclusion that the soft close mechanism was hindering the drawer. So remember that whole thing where I'm forgetting to film a lot of stuff? I forgot to film putting in the desk. So the frame is in the wall. So the way I did it, I took these nice little support beams and put them in each corner, leveled it up, and we drilled it in.
Back at the shop, I ripped both sides of the tabletop to give me the perfect width. And here's the finish after the second coat of polyurethane dried for 24 hours. I'm really happy with it. When installing the wireless charger, I basically followed step by step what Brad did over at Fix This Build That. I learned from his mistake. I put hot glue in the channel before putting in the cable. Once the wireless charger was set in place, I flipped the table over and began sliding it into its final place. I screwed it in from the bottom with pocket screws and then reattached the new drawer slides. And with that, this project was done.
So this desk turned out great. I ran into a few hiccups along the way, but I showed you how to work through them, and that's really all woodworking is. It's solving problems, even when the problems are mid-project. So this is my first video I'm putting on YouTube doing any woodworking. I've got some more projects coming up that are going to be pretty cool, so stay tuned for that. So I do want to say thank you to Mr. Nathan for always opening up his shop to me. He lets me use all of his awesome tools and just kind of gives me free reign in the shop. And if it wasn't for him, I couldn't have made this thing. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. But before we go, I want to show you my tiny house. So this is my tiny house. It took me 2 years to build. I bought the trailer my junior year of high school and started building that summer. It's really cool. If you like to check out the entire progress, check out instagram.com/collegetinyhouse. But let's go inside. So this is my tiny house. I've been living in it for over a year and I've loved it. And I want to show you guys where I've been living. So as you come in, the first thing you'll see is my nice chair and end table. And then when you turn around, you'll see my new desk that I just built. That kind of gives you an idea of where it is in the space. But moving on through the rest of the house, right here I have my closet and 3 drawers to have more clothes. It actually fits all my clothes just fine, so that's a plus. So in here, you can see I have a 10 cubic foot fridge, which is a large size fridge for a tiny house. And I also have a convection microwave. So it's basically a toaster oven and microwave combined. I've baked a cake in this thing, and it was amazing. It was really good. So moving on, I got tons of countertop space, tons of drawer space, and more cabinet space. And then back here is my sink with clean dishes in it. I do love this faucet. I love being able to move it around. And just check this out. Is that not awesome? My boss made that for me. But I love showing people that. That was a Christmas gift. It was awesome. And then moving into the bathroom, I have a 36 by 36 full-size shower and a composting toilet. And my hot water heater is also in here as well. But you're probably thinking, so where do you sleep? Well, I sleep up here. That's my sleeping loft. And this is how I get to it. I have a telescoping ladder. And this is where I sleep. I have my air conditioner back here, which is nice because I like to be cold when I sleep, but it's also at the highest point in the house. So anything that it pulls up, it's pulling out all the heat that rose in the house. So it keeps the house nice and cool. It's a 9,000 BTU unit from Pioneer. It's really good. But I'm 6'3", and I'm sitting up in my loft, no problem, and I'm not hitting my head. I mentioned it when I was in the loft, but I do want to add that I'm 6'3", and I have plenty of space under the loft. I don't feel cramped in my house. I actually really love my house, and I enjoy spending time in it. It's great. But thank you guys for watching this video and sticking it all the way out to the end, and I hope you consider subscribing to my channel, and I hope you guys have a great day.